Welcome into OutKick the show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. It is arguing season. You guys know I love college football more than any sport. We have finished the regular season. We've got the conference championship games upcoming, and we are joined by very successful Miami head football coach Mario Cristobal, 10-2 this year. We're going to get into all of the different arguments, all the different perspectives, but Coach, appreciate you making the time to join us here. I have said that you should be in over Notre Dame. I bet you tend to agree. But let's dive in first to the overall season that you guys had. You bring in Carson Beck. Last year, Cam Ward is the quarterback. You start off the season with a huge win over Notre Dame. Finish the year 10-2. Very good resume. I think it's worthy of the college football playoff. How would you assess the season top to bottom now that the regular season's complete?
Well, sure. Well, no, first of all, it's great to be on the show. Appreciate you having me. And it's been a great season. You know, we start off the season, game one, 8 new starters on defense, new coordinator, 6 new starters on offense, and come out the gates and we beat Notre Dame, and we go to be as high as number 2 in the country. You know, we stumbled in the middle there for a minute. And we're down 6 or 7 starters. And once we started getting a little bit healthy, you know, right now, arguably, we're playing the best football in the country by almost every metric imaginable. Top 5, top 10 as it relates to offense, defense, special teams play, and finished about as strongly as you can finish. And again, excited because we're getting even healthier and playing our best football here at the end of the season and ready to take this into the college football playoff.
All right. I don't think this is complicated. When you have 2 teams with the same record, you finished 10-2, Notre Dame finished 10-2. The number one tiebreak in every sport that I've ever seen, in every competition that I've ever been involved in every competition that anybody out there watching or listening to us has ever been involved in is, okay, same record, who won head-to-head? It's the number one tiebreak. That seems dispositive to me. If it comes down to you or Notre Dame, you guys have to be in. Otherwise, why play the game at all? What am I missing?
You're not missing anything. I mean, it's why we play the game. It always has been, always will be the ultimate tiebreaker. Why schedule it? Why even play if that's not always considered the number one most important top of the food chain factor as it relates to, at the end of the day, deciding between a winner and a loser. And then on top of that, I think it was interesting, you know, we have 4 common opponents. And, you know, in 3 of those 4 contests, we have a significant advantage in the way that we played, and won convincingly versus those opponents as well. So, you know, it's kind of funny, like last year at this time of year, we lost the last game of the year against Syracuse. I felt like we had to engage in a debate as to why we should be in or why people think we shouldn't be in. This time around, it's more like, here are the facts. We settled this on the field. Plus, we have the advantage of having played 4 common opponents. Here it is, right? The facts take care of themselves. You don't, no one has to build any false narratives around this. Like, it was done. It was played. 10.8 million people saw it on TV. Another 70,000 in the stadium. So it's a pretty compelling argument.
When Notre Dame says if we played the game now, we would win, and so that's why we should be in, your response to that would be what?
I just don't think football is based on hypotheticals. I don't think football should be relegated to what looks nicer or what people might seem to think look nicer. You know, when 2 really good teams play and there's a final result, that's the result. You know, I think, I know that I don't see myself ever engaging, and, you know, we lost a game this year, and he coming out and saying, well, if we played so-and-so again, we beat them. I wouldn't do that, you know. We're playing our best football right now. When we played them, we were a top 2 team. We're playing even better now. There's no one in the country that we feel that we can't match up against. But I don't even address stuff like that because hypotheticals just aren't part of what we practice or preach at the University of Miami.
I was one of those 10.3 million people who watched that game. I actually thought you dominated Notre Dame quite significantly. Now, I know the final score was close, But for much of that game, it felt like you had control of it. You think your team is better now than it was then. But I come back again and again to, if we're not going to actually apply what we saw on the field when it comes to ranking teams, won't we just see a lot of teams say, well, why would I even play that game then if you're not going to consider it when it comes to who should be in the playoff?
Yeah, I mean, somebody hit me between the eyes the other day when they were talking about this scenario, and they mentioned, when you're comparing two teams, if you don't have an actual game where they played against each other, you start comparing and talking about different things. But if you have the luxury of having an actual competition, something that actually took place, then the argument is settled. And I think it's important to look at some of the PFF grades as it relates to line of scrimmage play in that particular game, and the way our defensive line and offensive line had dominant games. Look at the way, the star players on each team perform, what they were held to in our game versus what they produced versus other opponents. It's a ginormous difference. It's such an obvious collection of data that we want to make it real simple for the committee as it relates to comparing both teams, because that game certainly, it proved a lot. And then I think the added component of all the common opponent results just adds more to the entire equation in our favor.
Steve Sarkisian, the head coach of Texas, 9-3 Longhorns, said his team should be in over yours. I'm sure you saw those comments. What's your reaction?
Yeah, I know. I saw them play Florida this year. Florida did a great job, had a dominant victory against them. We played Florida. In fact, I think Florida was 0 for 13 on third downs against us. We won 26-7 this year, won 41-17 last year. So, I think that's a non-argument. That's a non-issue. I think we all know
that. There's a lot of talk about the ACC championship game. It's got Duke 7-5 going up against Virginia. Virginia played NC State earlier in the year, lost. There's a 5-way tie for second place. You guys are a part of that 5-way tie. When you look big picture, as the college football playoff has expanded, does it make a lot of sense to you to have conference championship games, or should we play regular seasons and just say, hey, let's take the best teams and go ahead and dive into the tournament? How do you see big picture college football there? Because a lot of people are saying you guys are the best team. I think you clearly have the best resume in the ACC, but yet you're not able to play in that championship game because of a 5-way tie that ended up happening.
Yeah, it's a bizarre situation. I mean, imagine, getting a notice saying, hey, there's a 5-way tie, but when so-and-so played so-and-so on this particular date, which you played neither one of them, but one of them won by 2 points, so you have to sit, and someone else with, this record has to go. Now, again, those rules were somehow put in place, those stipulations, so you got to live with it, but it is head-scratching, right? And there needs to be a remedy, one that actually makes sense. What is that remedy? I don't know. I think the NFL seems to have a pretty good grasp of how to do this in terms of divisions and conferences and whatnot. And, maybe that is the best model to go to, but certainly the model that is in place right now leaves a lot of room for improvement. It actually opens up the door for a lot of discussions that can be settled on the field, a lot like we were talking about game one this year.
I don't know how well you know Secretary of State Marco Rubio. I know he's in Florida. I know he's a big college football fan. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but they had a couple of hour cabinet meeting just now in the White House. I was texting with Marco over the weekend. His son plays on the Florida Gators, as I'm sure you're aware. He is, as he says, a Florida Gator fan, but I want to play what the Secretary of State just said and let you react to it. This just happened about 45 minutes or an hour ago. Watch.
This, and I know I'm last, so I wanted to be fast, but there was a lot to cover. I do want to say this is the most wonderful and magical time of the year. By that, of course, I'm referring to the college football playoffs. And I just want to say this as a point of personal privilege. And I'm a Florida Gator, but if the University of Miami gets screwed out of the college football playoffs after going 10-2 and beating Notre Dame, the whole thing should be scrapped, and you're going to have to take over it next year.
That's great. Well, thank you all.
That's Marco Rubio making the case, the person who he said, by the way, might have to take over the whole thing, President of the United States, Donald Trump. What was your reaction when you saw it? What do you think of Secretary Rubio's argument there?
Well, number one, we all have a tremendous amount of respect and admiration for him. I mean, down here, what he's done he's a legend. But if we have come to a place in time where a Florida Gator is advocating for a Miami Hurricane, you know that it is completely 100% correct, the right thing to do, that the Miami Hurricanes advance to the college football playoffs.
One question for you on the 10-2 record. You lost to 8-4 Louisville. You lost to 8-4 SMU. The Notre Dame people are going to say, oh, my God, they lost those two games. Those are quality opponents. How would you respond? Notre Dame also lost two games. One of those was to you. The other was to Texas A&M. How would you respond to people who said, well, Miami lost two games, therefore they shouldn't be in? I want to give you an opportunity there.
Yeah, I would reply with honesty. We did lose those two games, two teams that did creep into the top 25 and currently sit, I think, at 32, 35, around there or so. And I would love to see the metrics that separate 18 to 25 to 30, 32, 35, because it seems like all those are kind of in a jumble right there where there's not much separation between any of them. And then I would go right back to saying, why are you pointing at us versus somebody else when we played you and we won that game, Because quite honestly, if I was in those shoes, knowing the way that I have been, raised in the profession and taught by really, really good coaches, you have to, when you get beat, you have to admit it, and you have to give credit to the other team for doing so. And that's what happened. I mean, that can't be erased. We can't all of a sudden start thinking that week one in college football is an exhibition season. We don't have an exhibition season. We hit the ground running and we go. And every single game nowadays is like a playoff game in college football because they're all tallied up and they all mean something at the end. Let's not strip down the value of a team that had just played in the national title and Notre Dame that beat, all these other opponents that we're talking about that are in the discussion. And we had a chance to play with all these new starters. And we won and built a tremendous resume, one that is best and most deserving.
Okay, I got just a couple more for you. A lot of people, I live in Nashville now, watch Cam Ward play a lot, number one overall pick. This year, you've got Carson Beck. Have you gotten a chance to watch Cam Ward play very much for the Titans? I know you've been busy with your own team and getting ready. And how would you assess Cam Ward last year, Carson Beck this year, for people out there who watched your team play some last year and haven't watched as much this year? How are they similar? How are they different?
And they're two absolute studs. They're winners. They're competitors. It was an absolute just joy and a pleasure to have Cam here. Relentless competitor. To the point where, man, he would drive practice. He would drive his teammates, just like Carson Beck would. And then, Cam Ward, he came from Washington State where every single game was like an uphill battle. And he got here. We surrounded him with some great talent. And he just took off, just broke every record imaginable, number one overall pick. And I do believe, as time goes on and they continue to supplement the roster and the franchise with some really high caliber players, which is part of, again, any building process, I believe that the Titans will take off. I do. Because not only him, but some of the other pieces I see around them, that organization is destined for some great, great things. We'll send more Miami Hurricanes your way, I promise. Okay. We'll get that done. But
we need all the help we can get with the Titans.
But Carson Beck is very similar, different personalities, but super high football IQ, elite arm, just like Cam, understands the field and sees the field as good or better than anyone else I've ever been around. And they're both team-driven guys. Their only concern is winning and making the guys around them better. So I love them both. It's been awesome having Cam here. We expect to keep playing here with Carson as well. So we've been very fortunate with the type of players, the type of character of the young men that we've had here at the University of Miami.
The college football playoff rankings are going to be out later tonight. Couple of questions here about those rankings. What would you say to the playoff committee? Some of them may watch this interview. Second part, I've asked you a lot about Notre Dame. Alabama's playing in the SEC championship game. It's possible they lose. There's a world in which both you and Notre Dame could make the college football playoff. Do you see this as you and Notre Dame? Do you think if Alabama loses potentially to Georgia, that they could be in the mix to get left out? How would you assess the broader picture? What would you want the playoff committee to know if they're watching this right now as they get ready for tonight's rankings?
I would always lean on head-to-head and common opponents, and I think we discussed the Notre Dame aspect at length. We know we played them, we have common opponents, and in all those aspects, we've shown to be, the best and most deserving of the two. And then, as it relates to, these are all great teams now. I want to make that clear. I have respect for all these teams. They're all really, really good. But you have to then look, okay, what else is similar? Well, there's a common opponent in Alabama and the University of Miami, right? Florida State had a dominant victory over Alabama week 1, and we had a convincing victory against Florida State in week 5. So, I mean, if those things don't count and aren't somehow placed in heavy consideration, I think you really start to eliminate the value of playing football games, and now it becomes a true pageant, a debate, narratives, posturing, manipulation of information. Football was never designed to be that way. I mean, everyone that ever played the game, brother, I mean, everyone was waiting for that game on August 31st for a reason. Everyone knew it carried a ton of weight, and it was played. And it does, and it needs to. And everything else on top is just icing on top of the cake as it relates to resume, So that's why I think these things are so important. And the next thing is the common opponents. But those are the things I would like to say. You'd love to be able to sit in front of a committee and see all the things that go into it. But we've presented the facts respectfully. There's no arrogance or trying to be over the top by being overbearing. We want a fair and, a true approach to seeing why we are the best and most deserving team.
I know I said last question. I always do that. You've got signing day tomorrow. You've got the playoff rankings coming out. You got conference championship games. And you have all these coaches getting new jobs. In the middle of the playoff, Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss is going to be in the playoff, it appears. But he decided that he was going to take the LSU job. How challenging is the calendar with all of these different things colliding in college football? Have you thought of a way to make it more of a process that isn't as contradictory and so much conflict with all this coming together simultaneously?
If you had a 3-hour show, I could lay it all out for you, brother. But it's a large blueprint, a big plan. It doesn't make sense. We get paid well to be able to handle it, but multitasking would be an understatement as it relates to what you have to be able to do to manage all this stuff. It is, look, thank God I have Cuban coffee by the truckload out back because it is always going down to be able to keep going. And I have unbelievable people that surround the men and women that are just incredible human beings, hard workers. So we make it work. And we're also at a place where people want to be at. So if you do lose people, you're going to have an opportunity to replace them with people that are as good or better. But it's pretty chaotic. There is no holiday. There is no downtime, man. You just go.
Mario Cristobal, head coach, University of Miami Hurricanes. We'll see where they are in the playoff rankings later tonight. But I think you've made a compelling case that you should be in the playoff. Appreciate the time, Coach, and good luck managing all those obligations.
I appreciate you having me. Go Canes.